Well, I think most of what I want to say in this video is related to COVID-19 in that it's about what's going to come after all this, because I continually look into the future and sometimes try to just intuit how it's going to be. But mostly I apply a lot of reasoning and I try to be as rational as possible. There are going to be a lot of changes ahead. I think the first big shock for a lot of people is that the COVID-19 isn't just happening for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months and then it's going to disappear and everything goes back to normal. Because it never was normal, you see. Now I'm sharing my perspective from Bealtaine Cottage and from living here for the past 16 years in much the same way that many people all across the world are living now. And that is in isolation and seclusion. Of course, the difference being that for me, it's been a lifestyle choice. But it's been a lifestyle choice because I wanted to do everything in my power to help Mother Earth from day one. That was my only objective. I was just briefly listening to the radio this morning. You know, I listen for 10 or 15 minutes and then that's it. I can't listen anymore. But I catch the general gist of what it is that's happening and what the people in charge are talking about. They're talking about airlines this morning. They're talking about bailing out the airlines. They don't use the word nationalise because that's far too socialist, of course. And we all know that the powers that be are all, to a man, quite right-wing. What my grandfather who fought in World War II would have said was worth fighting against. Little did he know. Over the course of my lifetime, air travel has gone from being a very expensive pursuit, because for many it's just been a pursuit, it hasn't been a necessity, from a very expensive pursuit to a cheap, unthinking, yeah, I'll have some of that kind of approach form of travel. And the real cost of air travel has never, over the past 40 years, been put to the consumer. If anyone thinks that jumping on a plane to go off to, Berlin or whatever for the weekend, for a stag do, is priced at the real cost, they're completely living in cloud cuckoo land, because it's people like me and you who are paying the real cost. Ultimately, of course, it's been Mother Earth paying the real cost. But then that's been all about our own extractive mentalities. We want more, and we don't understand the meaning of the word enough. It's become rather perverse. So that's never going to go back to how it was. Because virtually all these airlines are now closing down or holding their governments to ransom and saying, well, if you don't give us, X amount of million or X amount of billion, we're going to fold. But none of these politicians talk about the real cost. Absolutely none. Because the environment is never ever figured in to the cost of anything in the world as we have known it. So that's going to change. I don't think we'll ever see again the mindset of the expectation of cheap air travel. And of course, much of this is about real cost. Those two words, real cost, they don't seem to exist in Western society. There's no talk about the real cost of anything. We just take it for granted that if we want something, we get it, we acquire it, and most of the time it's done through, I suppose, what society has existed on now for the past 40 years, which is credit. You see, I'm recalling the days of my own youth, when credit didn't exist. Well, it didn't exist for the majority of people, shall we say. And if you wanted something, you had to save up for it. Now, I've lived for 16 years without credit. I haven't had a credit card. I wouldn't have been able to get a credit card, actually, when I first came here. I mean, I know that they relaxed all the rules in order to get everyone hooked into the credit matrix, but after a few years of working at this project, I was quite confident in the fact that I didn't need credit, because Mother Earth doesn't recognise what that is. You know, Mother Earth just keeps giving and giving and growing and growing, and those who say, oh, you must have needed a lot of money to do this project, that's utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. You don't need money to do a project like this. Okay, if you want to have a polytunnel, you know, you might need to buy one. I didn't even buy a polytunnel. As all the videos and blogs attest to, you know, this has been hand-built. It's a completely unique tunnel. Hand-built, designed. Still standing after all these years. Still quite robust. Tight as a drum. So, no, I managed to do it all without credit. Because plants keep giving, plants keep multiplying. You know, there's no cost. I mean, look at all the plants in here. I haven't put them there. Seeds have blown in, and you know, as I was pointing out yesterday, even the little bits of rocket there. I mean, look at it all. You know, food's sprouting up whether I plant it or not. It's just there. That's the natural way. Although, you know, it has taken 16 years to get to this point where there's so much self-generation, regeneration going on, you know. Self meaning the mother, of course. So credit is something which is going to be very... I think that the rules applying to credit are going to be a lot more stringent, let's put it that way. Cost. The real cost of food. We haven't been paying for the real cost of food again for a very, very long time. I go back to when I was a child growing up, and you couldn't buy tomatoes all the year round. You longed for those beautiful, long, hot days of summer when the local shop would have a basket of tomatoes sat on the counter for sale, tomatoes for sale, and you went and you bought one or two. You didn't go in and buy, a pound of tomatoes or £2 of tomatoes. Certainly not where I lived. And I grew up in what we'd call today slums. Back-to-back houses, no gardens, outside toilets, no bathrooms, 11 people in a 2-bedroom house. And that kind of pattern was repeated all over the area where I lived, which was called, get this, Gallows Hill. If you want people to think that there's no future, put them in living conditions like that in a place called Gallows Hill. We thrived, by the way. We all thrived. We all thrived. There's a folk group, brothers. They were called the Sweeneys, the Sweeney brothers. They lived next door to us, the Sweeney brothers, and they made it big in Boston, in America. The Sweeney brothers. Yeah, so we all thrived, you know. Poverty doesn't stop people thriving. No, not at all. In fact, sometimes it brings out the most creative side of us. So the real cost of food, I think, is going to be very much part of the future. This I want it now, take away, throw away, careless attitude towards food and life and everything in between. That's going away. And the people who grow food, I mean really grow food, I'm not talking about industrial agriculture, which is abhorrent, which is an abomination, really, which is all about the, you know, I want more and I want lots of more attitude. I think that the real value of food, the real cost of food, and what the producer of that food gets will be far more compatible with living with Mother Earth, as opposed to this mentality of living on her. What we're seeing now is a series of system breakdowns. And the system breakdowns, of course, is going to leave a void, going to leave a gap. And how we fill that gap, how we keep things going, how we see the world, is all going to feed into our future. We are actually at this point in time creating our own future. The value that we put on things. You know, 2 months ago, one would pick up a bar of soap in the supermarket and, you know, it's just a bar of soap. We don't even think about it. Oh, well, I don't really want that soap because I don't like the smell of that soap. I'll have this soap, or I'll have 10 bars of that soap. You know, this kind of, again, I can have what I want and I want more. A bar of soap now seems, in my mind's eye, to be not just a necessity, but something that's going to last. I'm looking at the soap as I wash my hands. I'm looking at the bar of soap becoming smaller and smaller, and I'm thinking, now this should last me through until such and such a date, you know. I'm actually regarding the soap, that bar of soap, in a more realistic way. It's the value we put on things. Or maybe it's the lack of value that we attach to things. think perhaps the real symbol of that value of things, or that value of work, the value of society, seem to be very much encapsulated in what has happened out in the Saudi Peninsula. So looking at all those countries within Saudi Arabia, where people like, the Beckhams and all, they've gone to Dubai for the weekend, gone to all these luxury places, and never really thought or never questioned about, well, who has built this incredibly luxurious hotel complex? How much has it really cost? Over the years, I have been consistently, sometimes outraged at what I've been privy to know about that, where millions of workers from impoverished countries have been literally imported like goods to build these monstrosities that bear no relation to the environment at all, and only exist and only operate because of a completely false paradigm that they are part of. And these workers, many of whom have died, falling off buildings, all kinds of accidents in the loosely controlled workplace. These people, their lives have had no value whatsoever. None. And still, the people with wealth and the people of celebrity importance and the people of political importance and the billionaires, they just say in a cursory way, well, I'm off to Dubai for the weekend. In the celeb magazines, picture them lounging in these luxurious hotels, whilst the people behind the scenes are enslaved, working for a pittance. The greed, the avarice, the quite disgusting way in which these people have modelled a lifestyle that so many people on the other side of those magazines, buying those magazines and looking at all the glossy pictures, are looking at and wanting more of. They want to be like the Beckhams, or they want to be like whoever it is, the celebs. Many of these names I don't even know now, It's quite sick, really. Yeah, I think there's been a massive sort of a sickness. Now, of course, this isn't a rant. I wish it were a rant, because I could get really angry about things, but I can't feel anger about this. I've watched it for too long. I have consistently tried to bring people to see what is the real value. The value that can't be measured on a spreadsheet. The value that can't be measured in a bank account. I mean, in present day terms, if I was going to want or need or whatever to sell this place tomorrow, even if there wasn't a global crisis because of the pandemic, do you think that any estate agent, any auctioneer, any realtor would actually value any of this? And the cottage? Well, how much value would you put on that? Probably very little, because it doesn't have a flush toilet anymore. It doesn't have a bath, it only has a shower. Remember, I took the bath out because I didn't want to be wasting all the water in the spring well. It doesn't have a drive around space, you know, for a big SUV, just circle the cottage and exit the driveway with great aplomb. It doesn't have an upstairs. Although, try telling that to the crow up there, peeking out of the chimney. That's her upstairs, look. I don't know if you've seen that. It's funny. They're building their little upstairs house there in the chimney. So the real value of this place would never be recognised. But there's a big 2-storey house over there. That's more valuable. In present day terms, that's more valuable. It's got about 1/3 of an acre of cut grass in front of it, no trees around it, but it's a big house and it has a jacuzzi downstairs. So we actually have to go through all of this. We have to work our way through this global pandemic. And so far it's been a slow, progressive thing. And it has made us almost sort of hunker down onto Mother Earth. And it's actually given us the time to rethink our future. Because it can't be anything like the past. If we are to have a future, we have to have that future with Mother Earth, not on her, not extracting from her. Now, whether we like it or not, that's how she is going to have it. Because for years, over the course of all these vlogs on YouTube, again I have consistently said, I'm not going to talk about climate change. It's something I have no control over. And the things I have no control over, there's no point in me talking about them or getting involved, even with protests about them. That at the end of the day, this living, sentient being that some of us refer to as Mother Earth will bring it all back into line. She will not allow us to destroy her. And what is happening now is a part of what she needs to do in order to rebalance herself. She's doing it in a very gentle way. But we don't realise that. We don't think about that. Because of the way we are, we find it very difficult to see beyond our own needs. If we had ever seen beyond our own needs, Mother Earth wouldn't have been brought to the point of so much destruction by us. And all the other species that support us would not have been treated in the abysmal way that we have treated them. and all the slave labour that we've relied upon to build our infrastructure would not have been regarded with such low esteem. So there's a lot of change ahead. From my perspective, there's nothing to be frightened of, because the quality of my life does not go up and down like a yo-yo. The quality of my life is what you see. I made some very difficult choices 16 years ago. I came to a piece of land that nobody else wanted. Nobody else wanted it. It had been on the market for 5 years. Nobody wanted it. I financially impoverished myself in order to buy it. But you know all that story. I'm not going to recap on all of that. But then I set about co-creating with Mother Earth. And that's what you see. That is what you see. What I want to say is that for the next wee while, I can't say how long it's going to be, but I anticipate the videos being a little bit more sporadic and less on a daily basis. There's a lot which I have to get to grips with here, and much of it involves change and personal change, and the will to put some real change into my life, because there's another chapter of all this opening up, and I want to be ready for it. That's very important. And I'm not too sure how to set about putting all of that into motion, but I will be keeping in touch with you all. But it may not be as frequent. But as and when the Spirit moves me, I will make a video. And I know that the internet situation here has been very up and down, you know. But this is a time of great change, and I need to embrace it, and I need to know how to go with this flow. Because go with this flow I will. That's very important. Blessings to you all, my friends.